Hi. Um, Today I want to talk about really being true to our values. And I want to share a story with you that happened to me a long time ago, but I believe it changed. It changed my life because I was willing to step out on my values and not sell myself short. Okay. So, when I was in my early 30s, which was, 25 something, I don't know how many years ago, a long time. Um, I was working as a waitress and a housekeeper, and I had a 7-year-old son. So I was cleaning house in exchange for the lower part of this person's house, this man's house. And I was also working at a very nice restaurant, resort type restaurant, hotel in Santa Barbara. And actually Montecito, if you know anything about it. But so I had, fairly good jobs for a lack of having any skilled labor really, or education. And I was going to school to be a real estate agent. So I had, I was getting close to taking my exam while I was doing all of this and being a single parent and whatever. So when one day the man that I was working for, that I was cleaning his house, which started out as just a housekeeper, employer. Well, I had ended up having an affair with him at that point, and for a while. And one day he would go to LA, and then he would come back for the weekend. He would work in LA and come back for the weekend. Well, he came home one weekend with another woman. Okay, and I hear them upstairs, and I'm down. My place is downstairs. So, I never lived with him; it was separate, and I was devastated. I mean, how, God, horrible. For somebody to do that to you. Anyway, uh, so of course, I didn't put up with it. I think he gave me a credit card and said to take her out to dinner on his dime. Well, I took her out to dinner. I told her everything that had been happening, and then I think she went home when we went home, and she got on the phone. Oh, and then I ended up leaving. I just took off. I wasn't going to stay there, and I had to move. So I had to move into my girlfriend's um, tent in her backyard with my 7-year-old son. But fortunately, it was summer, and so it wasn't that hard. Not 2 weeks later, my job as the waitress, which I had for a year, very nice restaurant, and I served cocktails in the restaurant, and then one night a week I would go downstairs and serve in the bar downstairs. Well, I was working Sunday brunch, and they had these really good brunches there, and there were usually two cocktail waitresses working, and then all the waiters, that worked. Well, we used to be able to eat the brunch when we were done, which was great. I mean, it was incredible food, and but then they made this new rule that the cocktail waitress that went home early could not eat the brunch. So I was the cocktail waitress that was going to go home early. So they had a pan of eggs Benedict that had been out there on the table on the buffet, and they pulled it. There were still 3 eggs Benedict sitting there, and I knew they were going to dump it, and because then they put out another fresh pan. So when I'm in between getting the cocktail orders, I pulled 2 of those off of the pan. I put it on a little plate. I put it in this little back room that they had, and I continued working. Well, all of a sudden, the manager comes up to me and he says, "Have you been eating on the job, Nancy? Have you been eating on the job?" I had before. I got to admit, yeah, I have, but not that day. Not that day. Okay. So I said, no, no. And he goes, "Are those your eggs Benedict back there?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, and then so we walked around to look at them, and obviously someone had taken some bites out of them. It wasn't me. So um, I said, well, yeah, those are my eggs Benedict, but I didn't eat them. I didn't take the bites. So he walked away. Well, in the back with us was a cashier that would, run all the tickets. And she was like, the little room that I put the eggs Benedict was right next to where she was working. Well, she comes up to me and she goes, I ate it. I ate it. And I go, well, will you tell him that? And she goes, well, yeah, I will. So he comes back and he wants me to sign this thing, that says that I've been eating on the job, So it's like demerit. Oh, this is in your file. You're so bad. And I wouldn't. He came back and he wanted me to sign it. I go, I'm not signing that. I didn't eat, and I'm not going to sign it. And then I said, Karen or whatever her name was, Karen has something to say to you. And he goes, Nancy, come here. Karen has something to say to you, Nancy, come here. Well, I said an expletive that I probably shouldn't have, frick you. Very loud in the kitchen. And he goes, you're fired, right? So not only in 2 weeks, I had not only lost my job, my place to live and my job. So now, and I was about 2 weeks away from taking my real estate exam. So it was, do I go look for a full-time job? Or do I scale down? I get another part-time job. I scale down. I take my real estate exam and go and further myself. Well, that's what I ended up doing. But I'll tell you something. After I did that, it seemed that my whole life changed because it showed that I was not willing to sell myself short for money. I didn't care what. I'm not going to do that. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do. And even if you have already done that, don't do it anymore. Live up to your values. If you're working for a company and you don't approve of what they're doing, then don't work for them. Find another job because that karmically is against you. You can't, it's like selling your soul to the devil. It really is because you're going against your values for money, the golden calf, right? If you kind of step back from our society and look at it, it's pretty screwed up. We have really screwed it up, but it also can be very beautiful. So that illustration of my story is, my life did turn around after that. I really met a nice man, although I didn't stay with him either because of my own personal problems, but very nice. Hank was a very nice man. And I got into real estate. I learned about real estate. I wasn't extremely successful, but then I met my my next husband. Oh my God. And I had a really nice life for a while, and everything got better. But to me, I saw that as a turning point. It was really a turning point. There was another one for me. I was poor. This was before I was going into real estate or whatever. And I went to Las Vegas with my sister, and that was when my son was a baby. And I was getting hit on everywhere. And really, I had no money. And I started talking to this one man. And we're walking around the hotel. It's like during the day. We're walking around, and he takes me into his room. And all of a sudden, he goes, well, let me show you the hotel. And he's taking me around the hotel. We walk into his room, which is on a lower floor. It wasn't like we went, up into the elevator. And all of a sudden, he latches the door. And I knew that this man thought, maybe I was a prostitute or whatever. I don't know. I just opened that door really fast, and I bolted. Because it's really important. I don't care if you have done this or whatever. Money is not important. You can find other work. You can find work that you feel at least proud of, that you're not taking advantage of anybody, nobody's taking advantage of you, and you're doing the right thing. So I'm just going to put that out there to you. Your life will change if you're willing to walk away, if you're willing to leave that money on the table. And I really think that is an extremely good point. Anyway, I hope I didn't bore you with my stories, but I have had I've been a lot of different places, made a lot of mistakes, and I'm trying to share what I feel that wasn't a mistake. That was You know, I stuck with my core values, and I wasn't going to say I did something when I didn't do it. I wasn't going to stick around and let someone demean me by bringing in another, you know, woman and treating me like, oh yeah, you know, you're just a cheap whatever, you know. And I wasn't going to sell myself, sell my body, because, and you know what, if you have done that, you know what, hold your head high. You know what, we all make mistakes. Turn it around, and you can get better employment. You can get better employment. You can feel good about what you are doing. And there are a lot of people that work for corporations, and they know that these corporations are not doing the right thing. But they have mortgages and they have families to support. But you got to start thinking about that too. You know, you really have to start thinking about that, because is it worth it? Is it worth it in the long run? Anyway, for what it's worth, go out, make it a great day, and remember, love is the answer now.